No answer? Ray in San Francisco, KNEW, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Dr. Savage. First, let me start by saying I was a sergeant in the Marines.
All right, so you know a lot more than I do about this. Do you think we're going to win there?
Absolutely not. You can't win a war if you don't have an obtainable goal. You know, you're fighting a war on terrorism. Well, that's a nice pretense, but terrorism is always going to exist. It's like fighting a war on communism. How far did that get us years ago? It's just not obtainable. I mean, if you're going to say take over a city, you can do that. That has a goal. If you're taking over this enigmatic entity, yeah, I mean, there's a few targets here and there, but you're never going to eliminate it. So why are we there? Why are we continuing fighting? Are we just going to...
Well, let me ask you, were you in Afghanistan? Were you in that theater of operation, Ray?
Some of my colleagues were. I was fortunate enough to miss it. And
all right. Is there any grumbling? Is there any grumbling amongst the troops about the objectives and lack thereof in Afghanistan?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's always going to be some good, some bad, but for the most part, nobody wants to be there. I mean, you're away from your family, and for what?
I don't know. I'm asking for what. I read the Marines are dying every day. Why are they dying? They're stepping on landmines. Their cars, their trucks are going over IEDs.
I think when we first got there, they could see some reactions. They were getting cheered in the streets, but it hit a certain point, and that's all changed. And then we've moved on to another target, and then another, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. And that's where, the Marines are going to start questioning what they're doing.
Jeez. Look, Ray, let me send you a free copy of Banned in Britain, and you'll read in my new book that there is a tie-in between Michael Savage being targeted by the British Labour government and their quest for oil from Arab nations. I have a terrible feeling that we are in Afghanistan partly because the controllers of our Congress want us to be there for their own reasons. Stay on the line. The corruption is endemic now in America, from medicine to the government. Here's an article that should make you very sad. A doctor who wrote in an academic journal that preschoolers may suffer from depression and should be put on antipsychotics, we learned today, received funding from 3 drug companies that make mental health drugs. The doc who urged antipsychotics for 3-year-olds was funded by Johnson & Johnson, AZ, and Shire. That's right, Dr. Joan Luby, a so-called professor of so-called child psychiatry at the so-called Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, pushed the idea that children as young as 3 may suffer from bipolar disorder, and that there are, quote, promising findings for the use of atypical antipsychotic agents and mood stabilizers, both singly and in combination in the very young. In my day, she would be put in prison. In a sane nation, she'd be stripped of her medical license. She'd be jailed for the rest of her life. Her article in the 2009 journal entitled Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Clinics of North America did not disclose that in the past her work had been funded by a division of Johnson & Johnson that markets Risperdal, and that she has given talks sponsored by AstraZeneca, maker of Seroquel, and has been a consultant for Shire, maker of Adderall, XR, and Vanase. Did you hear this? How do you feel about that? How do you parents take this? How do you take this? How do you take living in a world where you can't even trust a pediatrician? This is not to tar brush every pediatrician, just most of them. They're drug peddlers. 20 years ago, the pediatricians were saintly, and they were the poorest of all doctors. And the reason they were the poorest of all doctors is because pediatricians could not prescribe drugs by and large, because they knew better than to do that, except in conditions of requiring real medication. And then that all changed. Slowly but surely, the big drug manufacturers got control of these so-called pediatricians and started to have them publish these fraudulent papers. And the next thing you know, you have little children as young as 3 being put on antipsychotic medications, turning them into zombies and drug addicts for the rest of their lives. She is more dangerous, and this type of doctor is more dangerous than a crack dealer in the cheapest neighborhood in America. Why? Because you know what a crack dealer is. A crack dealer doesn't pretend to be anything but a crack dealer. But a doctor, a medical doctor who wears a stethoscope and marches around giving learned papers on children, wants you to take a child who's a normal child with mood swings and tell you to put him on drugs? This is the world we're living in. Since 1981, I'll remind you, I have campaigned against the overuse of drugs in children, and I wrote Healing Children Naturally. I am proud to have been a pioneer in this field, and I suppose that is one of the reasons I am banned in Britain as well. There is a nation where the people are so drugged they don't even understand they're being run by maniacs. Anyway, let's get back to Afghanistan. Why are we in Afghanistan? Why are we not leaving Afghanistan? What about those of you who voted for Obama? Are you happy we're in Afghanistan? Sacramento, Francine, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Oh, my God, I can't believe I'm talking to you. I've tried to get through to you for a long time. I'm a 75-year-old Democrat that's embarrassed to say that I voted for Obama, and I wrote him a letter, and I asked for my vote back because he had written me a letter and asked if he could count on me because I hadn't contributed any money to the Democratic Party. We're in Afghanistan. I hate it, and I still have my bumper sticker on my car, which says, "Bring home all our troops right now." I've had that on for years since the war started, and I'm
well. At least you're true to your beliefs. That's very unusual for so-called progressives.
Long, but first,
let me ask you, Francine. You're opposite than I am. You're political opposite to me, aren't you? So why do you listen to the show?
Why do I?
Yes.
I listened to the show because, my God, I finally got stimulated. I finally got excited. I finally said, oh, my God, I feel like I've gone back to the true me way back when I wrote for our school newspaper like 30, 40 years ago in L.A.
So, in other words, you feel the passion and excitement that I feel.
Yes, oh my God, yes. You know, at first I didn't like it. So he's just so conceited. And then I said, but I couldn't stop listening to you. Every day I began to become, oh my, and you being...
You know, Francis, I want to address this issue, this concept that I am conceited and self-centered. It's probably true to a great extent, but let me explain something. Talk radio is a competitive event. It's not that different than any competitive sport. And anyone who goes out on the sports field has to be filled with themselves, conceited, positive that they're the winner, convinced that they're going to defeat the enemy, or they shouldn't go out there, they're going to get crushed. It's the same in talk radio. And anybody who goes out there and plays like nice guy, they never got anywhere. I want to tell you right now, Francine, you got to go out there ready to do battle. That's what this is all about. This is a combat sport. And so, sure, if I come across as arrogant, it's because I have to be in order to get up here every day and face people who are going to try to undermine me in various ways.
Well, you know, you being banned in Britain, that's horrible. I mean, I was really angry because I really believe in freedom of speech. I still work in a place...
Well, you see, you're a real liberal. You're different than progressives who are very different than liberals. Progressives, make no mistake about it, are not liberals. They're a breed unto themselves. They're very close to fascists in most cases. You probably have encountered them when they won't even tolerate your opinions.
They don't. At work, I copied your article out of the magazine New Yorker. Oh man, did I get a lot of cold looks.
Oh, you mean they don't want to read the New Yorker anymore because it wasn't condemning me and turning me into a mini Hitler?
One young man had a copy, and I said, I sure would like to borrow that so I could read. He said, Michael Savage, you're going to read him? I said, well, he's become my new guru. Well,
I didn't write the article, Francine, did I? It wasn't my article. It was written by a former music critic for the New York Times. Is he suddenly persona non grata among so-called progressives? Mm-hmm. Because he didn't put me on a cross and crucify me? I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a free copy of Banned in Britain when it's out. Stay on the line, Francine. In fact, I'm going to give it out every day this week that I'm on the air, I think, to every caller. Every day, every caller that gets on the air is going to get a free copy because I want this book read. I want it circulated. It will not be available in bookstores so far as I know, but the story is very important. I believe you're going to see the secret email chain, which proves definitively that I was picked on for reasons other than what they say. Okay? 1-800-449-8255, michaelsavage.com. I'll be right back.
Savage. On the air, online, and on the go. This is Talk 910 KNEW.
This war could be ended very rapidly. You just bring the troops home. That's all. Otherwise, we're going to have a bloodbath there, the way we did in Vietnam when we leave, and No one even knows the objectives. Nobody knows why we are in Afghanistan. And remember what went on in the 70s. Remember what went on in the 19th century. The British were defeated in Afghanistan and driven out. They suffered terrible losses. The Soviets, with the most advanced military, among, let's say, the second, they're pretty powerful in the 70s. Remember those attack helicopters that they had? They had shock troops going into Afghanistan and burning villages to the ground. You don't remember any of this? And yet the Soviets lost the war. Their economy was so depleted that the Soviet Union collapsed. Now, one could argue that one of the reasons we're bankrupt in America right now, and make no mistake about it, the country's bankrupt. It's just that we're manipulating the currency. That is, the geniuses on Wall Street, by printing more money and playing games with the economy.